Hey guys, so I had the Master Class Syndrome by Lynn. She's a member. She was a member of the voice faculty at Vanderbilt for 4 years, and currently the associate professor of voice and director of performance studies at Dixon College in Pennsylvania. An overview of this article of Masterclass Syndrome brings up points about master classes and how it can be helpful for students but be a drag for the lesson teachers. There's seven sections of this article: learning slash have learned, the master class, exposure versus learning, the dark side of exposure, performance shifts, and it goes back to learning. And the last section is the price worth the admission. In the intro, Lynn opens up with the success of this venue of master classes and how the students get valuable knowledge from the master teacher. There's a quote that says, "Learning is a process that results in permanent change in behavior as a result of experience." Another quote by Gary Marcus says, "The ability to learn starts with the ability to remember. There can be no learning without memory." In the first section, learning slash have learned, Lynn says it is critical to distinguish the learning process from the learning product. Learning is a dynamic process by which one requires skill or knowledge, but performance requires the matter of the effectiveness with which that skill or knowledge is imposed by the doer. In the master class section, she talks about the aspects of the master class. As a master teacher is brought in, usually someone who is trained, knows what to listen for, and they can help the students. This is open to the public, and this experience can open the eye for some students, which can be effective or can hinder the students with their lessons from their own teacher. Teachers are left with the fallout of the master class, so the master teachers usually put a disclaimer on there saying that if they don't agree with their teaching, or if you or your teacher don't agree, just disregard what they say immediately. And the next section, exposure versus learning, she talks about most students go to the master class to gain valuable knowledge that the teacher has to say, but simply going to these classes does not equal learning. A voice teacher tells his students that if something happens during their practice time, he gives the students permission to come right away and knock on his door and tell him what they learned in their practice session, so they don't have to wait a week to tell him and it's gone. A one-time success at a master class is very common to these new skills. It takes time and practice. Exposure is not learning, but is the necessary first step in the learning process. What follows is that they need practice and habitation until this gesture is learned. It goes on to talk about musicians and probably how musicians are better at the fundamental places of music like pitch and timbre, and how their memory is little better than other people. For students in the master class, the message is run, don't walk to the practice room as soon as possible after the master class experience, because these students need to maximize the investment by morphing the one and done miracle into a learned technique. The next section, the dark side, Lynn says that the master class is like taking a clock apart and trying to put it back together again, working better than ever. The master teacher tries to help the student out, but what if something goes awry in the class? Is it worth the dark side of exposure? Lynn gives an example of a master teacher not agreeing with the student, and they both walk off stage in frustration. Both the student and the teacher were really frustrated, but it also says that the student composed herself and returned to give a performance for the audience. Next section was performance shifts. Different physical and emotional states can affect performance, but both positively and negatively. While singers are really upbeat about their positive performance, negative performance shifts can often signal vocal habits, bad vocal habits. Negative performances can signal they need to be fixed and stuff like that. Learning entails temporary performance, the act of you need to have bulldozers knocking the mental structure down to better fulfill the void. It's kind of like learning to walk again. It is the teacher's responsibility to guide the student through this awkward phase. Their job becomes more challenging when guiding students through a learning obstacle that is outside the studio, like a summer festival experience. And the teachers can it can be hard for the teachers sometimes. They have to clean up the mess of like master students and festivals. In the next section, she goes back to the learning experience, and your bad experience may be your best. The cleanup process, or where the building or learning happens, is where it happens. When when habits happen, they come into light. They often reveal themselves to be useless and are discarded. Excuse me. Until a new structure or technique can be built, it is hard work for both the learner and teacher. By constructing or accepting false supports, we can withhold the shakedown, therefore hindering the students from their learning of the new styles. The last section is worth the price of admission. Lynn talks about, is the master class a worthwhile experience? If the prime motivation going to the master class is to gain knowledge, if knowledge is indeed gained, it is apparent that the retrospect and thereafter some time has passed. You might not learn as much. Another possibility is that the learner is exposed and was gained, but it was only exposed and not learned. So she, her opinion is it worth it? She says, if you learn, yes, then, but if you are exposed and don't learn, then it's kind of a waste of time. This was my this was my article, Master Class Syndrome, about master classes and how they break down. So, thanks.